Order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Bott is absent. Director Curry?
Present.
Vice Chair Deere?
Deere is here.
Director Garza is absent. Director Harrington?
Present.
Director Kim is absent. Director Ryder?
Here. Here.
Thank you. Director Robinson?
Present.
Director Sorrell?
Present.
Director Story?
Present.
Director Webster Cross? Is absent. Chair Taylor?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, meetings held remotely will require roll call votes for all action items. To streamline, we'll combine the action items into a combined motion. Meetings of the CCH board and its committees will be held remotely until otherwise noticed due to the determination that a public health emergency exists. The next regular meeting of the board will be held on Friday, April 28th at 9 a.m. The first item on today's agenda is employee recognition, which will be reviewed by Ms. Valerie Amos. Ms. Amos, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Valerie Amos, Chief Human Resources Officer. I'm delighted to share that we are welcoming a number of leadership members into the CCH family. On this slide, we have our new hires, Aaron Eldridge, who is one of the community and social services managers for the County Care Managed Care team, Christopher George, who joined us as an executive director for ambulatory care operations. We have Dernice Bonds, a nurse manager for registry in the nursing system float pool. In addition, we have Dr. Andrea Miller-Finch, who's the correctional chief of dental services and oral health. We have Gina Haynes, nurse manager of nursing administration, and Francis Gray, who's our executive administrator for our CEO, Mr. Rocha. Next slide, please. We have Latanya Danby, who is ambulatory clinic manager at Cottage Grove Health Center for ACHN, Margarita Childress, who's the director of provider relations for County Care, Michael Moonen, who's the chief nursing officer for Provident in nursing administration. We have Nicole Bascom Watson, who's the program manager of County Care, and we have Nuri Marcello, who's the chief nursing officer of correctional health and nursing administration. Next slide, please. We also have some promotions within our team. Bernadine Okay, who is our clinical nurse leader, nursing professional development education. We have Beverly Jefferson, who's our enrollment manager of County Care. Dr. Hugo Solari, who's an associate chair of psychiatry and psychiatry administration. We have Dr. Sabrina Kendrick, who's the director of Stroger Hospital inpatient HIV services for medical services. We have Edward Miranda, who is the community engagement manager for public health. Next slide. Edward Miranda, again, listed twice, sorry. Then we have Janine Sergey, who's our director of organizational and workforce development within human resources. We have Simon Tingen, who's the associate director of nursing for trauma and nursing administration. and Wayne Pollard, who is an associate manager of respiratory services within respiratory therapy. Is there another slide? So please welcome our new leaders, as well as congratulating our promotions within the organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well done.
Congratulations to all.
Is that the same as? Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I think that's it for now.
That feels so
We'll have more at the additional board meetings, I'm certain.
I'm sure. The next item is, first of all, before we move on, I'd like to acknowledge, I believe, Director Webster Cross has joined. Madam Secretary, Director Cross.
Director Webster Cross, are you present?
I am present.
Excellent, thank you.
Appreciate it. The next item is public testimony. Madam Secretary, do we have any speakers who registered to provide virtual oral testimony?
We did not receive any registrations.
Thank you. Do we have any written testimony?
No, we did not receive any written.
Thank you very much. Then, given that, next on the agenda are the board and committee reports. The minutes of the February 24th board meeting are being presented for your approval. Approval will take place in the combined motion later in the meeting. Are there any corrections or revisions needed to the minutes that were provided? Hearing none. Great. Next, Director Curry and Ms. Valerie Amos will now review the Human Resources Committee metrics. That committee did not meet this month, so these metrics are being presented directly to the board. Thank you. Director Curry.
Valerie, can you see the slides?
I can see the slides, but I think Director Curry was speaking. My apologies. Director
Oh,
Curry,
okay.
you're on mute.
That's right, yeah, mute. I'm sorry.
It's
Uh,
okay. He was introducing me, Debbie.
I was introducing you. I certainly was a great lip reader. I'd like to introduce Valerie Amos, who will present the human resources metrics. Thank you.
All right, we heard you that time. Thank you, Director Curry. Valerie Amos, Chief Human Resources Officer. Next slide, please. So I'm happy to share year-to-date metrics in terms of hiring. We have filled 385 positions. These are positions that some folks have started and some have accepted offers and have not started. This is the total number, 385. As we've been tracking our number of offers as it relates to declinations, we have received 64 offer declinations. Most of the reasons, now the top reasons, have been personal. People have not necessarily disclosed, but we do capture other reasons as well. So we're at an 85% ratio, which is still a very solid ratio. So we're excited about that, and we will continue to track and trend. And if we see some trends in certain areas, we will definitely be making some modifications to our process. In terms of our quarterly stats, as you can see, from FY22 quarter one all the way to present, we are moving upward and to the right, which is a positive trend in terms of our hires. How quickly are we hiring our external folks? Because that is where we need to continue to focus our efforts. 247 of the 385 have been external offers that were accepted or hired, which means people have either started or have accepted offers who may not have started. Our time to fill metric is still higher than where we would want to be, but we are continuing to drive that down, 119 days. Our external time to fill is still higher than where we'd like to be, but we are feverishly attempting to ensure that we can drive that down by hosting our job fairs where we expect externals to walk in and receive those contingent offers, which means that time to fill metric will be very low. So we will continue to track and trend. As you can see in the charts below, Mr. Harrington, you have a question, I believe.
a quick question. You said they're
Sure.
not where you would, you said the metrics are not where you would like them to be. Do you have a goal in mind? If you
We
have a goal,
do.
it might be interesting to see the goal
Yes.
juxtaposed in figures.
Absolutely. Our goal is 90 days. And so we can place that on the slide as well. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
All right. Next slide, please.
Ms. Amos,
Oh.
one question, clarification.
Sure.
So
Uh-huh.
your goal is 90 days from offer acceptance to start?
No, my apologies. If
Yes,
you can
sir.
go back to that slide,
Yeah.
Debbie. Our time to fill metric is defined as the time that the position is posted
Okay, got
to the time of offer. Because oftentimes we will receive information and sometimes there are some changes that need to be made to the posting, or we need some additional information like shift information. And it may be in our queue for several days before we were even able to post it based on some questions back and forth. So the time to fill metric, that's kind of the standard and benchmark is really the time that we post that position to the time when someone accepts the offer. Now, in addition to that, we understand that folks won't start right away the day that they accept, that they do provide notice to their employers, and they are also subjected to our pre-employment screening process. And that time is typically about 2 weeks or so, given given proper notice. Sometimes it's longer because people would like to give a 3 and 4 week notice, which is also very admirable and professional.
Thank you. Thanks for
No
clarifying.
problem. Next slide, please. So this is a breakdown, and why is this number different from 385? These are the individuals who have physically started with the organization. So what I shared on the slide before is great news. We have more folks who've accepted our offers and they have not started. But this particular slide shows the metrics of folks actually starting or moving into their new positions. The breakdown is below as well for internals versus externals. We're very proud of our internal movement. That speaks to retention efforts as well. We'd like to continue to promote and ensure that folks are happy with their decisions that they are making within the organization. So we are tracking this year over year. And as you can see, it's depicted between FY 21, 22, and 23. Next slide, please. So how are we, focusing our efforts on accelerating hiring and accelerating the, the initiatives in terms of attracting additional external candidates? I've spoken with you so many times about our job fairs, and so very proud to share that our first, our fiscal year until March of this year, we have March as of, let's see, about 15 days ago. This slide was presented. We hosted 8 job fairs, and 600 plus individuals attended the job fairs. We had 401 interviews. And why is there a discrepancy there? It's because individuals will come in and they may not meet the minimum qualifications for the positions that we are hosting at the job fairs. But that's not a missed opportunity for our candidates. We actually have individuals on site who speaks with those candidates. And we also invite them to apply to other positions of interest. And so we have them to sit in our kiosk or computer room so that we do not miss any opportunities. In addition to that, 166 offers were extended, and 152 individuals had accepted the offer at the time of this slide. In the bottom asterisk, 8 offers were still pending candidates' acceptances to us. So more information to come. We're very proud that we're hosting monthly job fairs. As you can see to the right and up top, these particular job fairs covered many areas where we have high concentrations of agency. And so we're really going after the positions that have really driven the agency costs up, because we understand that that is our goal. All right, Director Story's hand. I think I see your hand.
Good morning. I
Good
have
morning.
just a quick question going back
Sure.
to Dr. Harrington's comment about, a benchmark
Sure.
with respect to the velocity external hiring.
Yes, sir.
From I mean, it's good news. I mean, with respect to fiscal year 22, fourth quarter, from 167 down to 119. What drove that such a steep slope?
We have been again focusing on those external job fairs. I mean, again, when folks walk in, we speak to fairness and consistency for every candidate. So we're excited about that. And as they walk in and they have some of them have applied to our positions because we do promote that. And then others who have not, they apply on site, they receive the interview, and the offer is extended at that point. We believe that that model is working. It is a lot of effort to host job fairs, to say the least, but we're committed because we know that that is driving our time to fill metric down when we receive those offers, acceptances on the same day. So we're going to be working internally, looking at our entire process and focused on modernizing some additional revisions with our recruitment process as it's governed by our employment plan. We're going to be modernizing that even more. We've been working collaboratively with our employment plan officer under the direction of the CEO to really drive that down even further.
Well, I mean, it's significant, almost
Yeah.
50 days.
And
It
Director,
is.
give you a sense of it, right? The average time when you're looking at executive roles to fill an open engagement is somewhere between 115 to 120 days. So having
Exactly.
90 days is ambitious, which is great. But if you're gonna look at out in industry standard, even when things are working well,
Exactly.
it's really about 100, 110, 115 days. Just FYI.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, Chairman. I know that your bench strength is also in executive recruitment, and you're absolutely right. And so we're excited to continue to host the job fairs because we believe that that is making a tremendous difference in terms of driving down that particular time to fill. I see Director Robinson's hand.
Yes, I have a question for you because I took note of this area as well. I'm not sure what the normal numbers are, but I looked at you had 400 and something interviews and I think 166 people that you accepted. That's like 41.4%. Is that standard or are you above the standard?
Debbie, can you go to the next slide, please? The next two slides. My apologies. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry. Back one. Job fairs. There we go. So, I mean, obviously, we would want our number of interviews and offers. We'd like that ratio higher. We'd like it to be, close to 80%. And that's why we're working hard to identify why individuals who were interviewed did not receive offers. And we identified a huge challenge. One of those challenges, Director Robinson, was our job descriptions were a little constrictive, if you will. And so we've been working on that journey with our departmental leadership to make some notable changes to our job descriptions so that that percentage is much higher. I don't have the industry standard today, but most importantly, I'm striving for at least an 80%. When I spoke about the offer acceptance, that 85% is very strong. And we'd like to see more conversions from interviews to offers. That percentage be also very strong. The offers to offers accepted is highly, notable. And that is fantastic. That's fantastic news that almost everyone that we extended an offer to said yes to us on that particular day of the job fair.
Oh yeah, I definitely took note of that. But the 166 versus the 401 caught my attention because I know in this particular climate, 40%, in my opinion, is actually pretty darn good. Because
I don't
you,
disagree. I don't disagree. We just have a long ways to go to make certain that we make some notable changes, because as you see, as you will see on the next slide, we're going to talk about separation. So we want to accelerate this even further so that we can have a net new of much more than where we are today. And I don't disagree. I thank you for that compliment. We're excited about the 41%, but we'd like to double that so that we can see some traction in our net new, because as I've mentioned before, our organization is very tenured, and we are working on forecasting, retirements and so forth. And so we'll be, sharing some insights at a later time about that as well. Thank you for your question and your comment.
thank you.
Next slide, please. As I mentioned with hiring, here's our turnover and separation. We still look great in the benchmark standard. 2.7 year-to-date turnover is very notable. But as you can see, we've had just a slight spike up to the right, which is that graph. We had 152 year-to-date folks separate from CCH. Next slide, please. And here's the breakdown. We still look great in comparison to our previous year over year. 152 of those are listed for FY23. In terms of the number one area, as you can see in blue, it's retirements. So we just talked about that a little bit of a second ago. So 85 of those are retirements. Next slide, please. Here is another view of the turnover. As I mentioned, we were 2.7, which is notable in the market, great industry standard. As you can see below, 5610 represents our employee base at this moment. And year over year, you can see that the number of employees have decreased year over year. So we will need to continue to bring in new talent to the organization from the external side to really offset the number of retirees and just our natural attrition. Next slide, please. Very excited to share, why is the slide here? I know it's not metrics, but the reason we are doing what we are doing in terms of really modifying our recruitment challenges and supports, we've had notable changes internally. Some of the changes, we're very proud to share that we've designed a hiring manager dashboard, and I mentioned this at a previous meeting. But again, it's really designed for our managers to review the information there so that we can generate some transparency into the recruiting process. And that decreases the amounts of calls and emails back and forth to the recruiter. It speaks to productivity and efficiency. And we are looking to really have some good data. Unfortunately, it's manual. It's powered by Tableau through our BI system, but a lot of the inputs are manual. And so we'd love to transition to a full automation through our applicant tracking system at some point. And we do have that on our trajectory. DTH digitization. What are DTHs? In our world, we call our offers decision to hires. And so that's just a terminology within CCH. And what we've done is we've had one of our external vendors, Slalom in particular, to create a portal for us. And this is a way for our team internally to see how many offers are in the queue. It's imperative for us to understand what is happening, how many offers are being submitted to us from our hiring managers. And now we have one repository so that we can see across our teams and cover when people are out. Director Curry, I think you have a question or your hand is up.
Yes, on the previous hiring manager dashboard, acronym PID.
Oh, my apologies. Positions, IDs, that's just a requisition or an open vacancy. And I'll try to be a little bit more clear. We'll use our CCH nomenclature here. Yeah, we're a little different. Yes. Thank you. So again, our offer digitization portal, or DTH, we're excited about that because at any given day, I can at least generate a report and say there's 30 offers in our queue. Let's drive that down by ensuring that our team has the supports to extend those offers in a timely manner. EHS, which is Employee Health Service, digital appointment scheduling. We're excited about this as well. We've collaborated with our Employee Health Services team so that we can schedule appointments more expeditiously without calling back and forth. And so we have a shared calendar system via a SharePoint site. And we have now over 300 appointments scheduled this way. So that's very notable. Really thanking Dr. Numagata and her team for partnering with us on this. It was a tremendous effort. And we believe that it will save time, not only for our team, but also for her team, ensuring that we can schedule those appointments in a timely manner. And I will note at our job fairs, we do schedule that immediately. So before that prospective new hire leaves us, we're scheduling those appointments. So we try to do everything on that particular day. Hiring Central, we're very proud of this as well. And this was powered by one of our external vendors. So this is part of our optimization. How do we refine and improve our processes? Now we have a one-stop shop for our hiring managers. This is a place where they can identify helpful recruitment resources. And so we believe that this will also decrease time and all of our recruitment processes, as well as all of the forms, the job fair information, kind of our guide. This is, I think it's a great resource and a tool for all of our hiring managers to also access. Next slide, please. In addition to further optimization efforts, one of our other vendors, Deloitte, has assisted us with improving our orientation. So not only are we attempting to attract top talent, we are also attempting to onboard them in a more meaningful way. So we have revamped our new employee orientation. We did this back in January, and so we've been studying and refining and enhancing. And so we're very proud to say that this is more of an immersive and interactive and engaging orientation for our new hires. In addition to that, what's not on this slide is we've also created a management orientation. And that's imperative because as I mentioned in the announcements, we have onboarded a number of new management team members, and they need to understand how to navigate Cook County Health System, how to complete, some of the time cards and just a lot of logistical things, as well as acclimation to our culture and environment. So we're very proud to share some of the optimization efforts from our vendors' supports. Director Harrington?
Yes. Are you monitoring and measuring this? It'd be interesting to see what the employees say about the orientation. It's nice to hear from you, but it'd be nice to hear them say this is great and I've never experienced it before.
Absolutely. And so we have been doing so. And after our first set of orientations, we realized that we needed to remove a slide that did not represent our culture. And we took notice of that because our new hires shared that critical information. So we have been receiving feedback. We have surveys for our new hires, and it's imperative for them to share that information with us. So yes, we are tracking and trending, and we're making modifications as we hear from each group. And so our groups are getting larger and larger because these external hires and rehires are coming in. And so we're going to continue to monitor that. And if we need to add more orientations, we will certainly do so as we continue this journey. But thank you for your question. All right, next slide, please. And this slide, I wanted to, again, just share some of the great work that we have been producing at CCH. But this is uniquely important to us. As you heard last year, and many of you who are new board members, I just wanted to announce that we are going to host our second annual Providence Scholarship fund. This year, we will be looking at 2 particular scholarships, the health professional scholarships, and this scholarship provides scholarships to medical, dental, advanced practice providers who are in a graduate level program. This award will be up to $20,000. And then the second program is our allied health and undergraduate scholarship program. Here's where our new, like our high school graduates, as well as anyone in an undergraduate program, can participate in one of our select fields of study. This award will be up to $10,000. Why am I sharing this here? Because one, it's a Providence scholarship. Just based on the namesake, this is a scholarship that we hosted last year, our inaugural year. As you can see to the right, we had 31 individuals who came in, participated, and received scholarships for their essays and their applications. This year, we are looking to award 60 scholarships, and this is in honor of Dr. Daniel Hell Williams, the Providence Hospital founder, and we're really excited about this. This is to really uplift underrepresented communities. We expect individuals to apply to our scholarship, and hopefully we will be launching this in conjunction with the press conference by our president, Preckwinkle, on hopefully next week. And I know our media team is working on that level. So I'm excited to share that we are working in partnership with our Cook County Health Foundation under Joe Flanagan. We have a great notable executive director who is working with us, and she comes with scholarship experience. Last year, this was hosted and funded by our Cook County government, and our funds this year will be our Cook County Health system, as well as the foundation and the Cook County government. So we're excited to share. I will take questions about this great program. We will have information soon to share with many of you. Director Story.
Thank you, Valerie. I would just like to take a moment, and this should have been done a long time ago, to acknowledge Commissioner Deere for his leadership and support in standing up, working with others, the president's office and the county commissioners, to establish the annual, Providence Scholarship in honor of Dr. Daniel Hell Williams. Thank you, Commissioner Deere, for your leadership and support in this endeavor over the last, 2 years, because we started this initiative over 2 years ago. So thank you, sir.
Sir.
Thank you, Otis.
Absolutely. And we do have a steering committee with a number of individuals who are excited about this. So thank you to all of the board members from our steering committee members for their participation in our recent meeting. Was there another hand? Director Harrington?
Yes, I just want to point out, and I may have mentioned this before, I serve on the Community Advisory Committee for the University of Illinois, and I'm sure that they would be very interested in this opportunity. And I have a number of colleagues at Malcolm X College as well. And they would be very excited to hear about this. So good work.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I know last year you were instrumental in sharing that information with me. And so we were able to point our 31 scholars in that direction for them to take advantage of the opportunities and connections there. This year, we're excited to share that we will have a mentorship program and framework. Last year, with our inaugural year, we had a lot of, this was new to me, new to my team. Manager Alicia Board was very instrumental in this, and I want to give her notable credit. But this year, we learned some of the lessons, and we will have a mentorship program. And so that's where a number of our internal CCH leaders can participate. Last year, so many people were excited about it and wanted to participate, but we will be checking in on some of them so that they can participate as mentors and really serve as a mentor for the full year and really drive some change here. And hopefully these individuals who will receive the scholarships would be interested in coming to work for CCH. It's not a requirement. However, we want to drive our external hiring as well. So hopefully this will be a great opportunity for them. And I think I see another hand. Is that Commissioner Deere? Let's see.
It
Commissioner
is. Thank
Deere?
you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Amos. First and foremost, thank you, Otis, for your comments. I want to also take an opportunity to commend you, Ms. Amos, for the work that you've done and your leadership. I know this was something new to you. It was uncharted waters last year. You was a bit nervous, but you did an excellent job in your leadership of the steering committee and this entire endeavor. And certainly we knew we could not do it without you on this year. So we made sure you were grafted into this. I know you thought you were getting away, but you have done a phenomenal job in making sure that this has come off as a grand success. We expect the same thing this year, and certainly we are rallying for and around and with you to ensure that. Again, thanks to the steering committee and thanks to Israel, our leadership here at CCH, for having a vision to make sure that this comes to fruition as well. And obviously to our wonderful president, Tony Pertwinkle. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for those kind words. It was a joint effort. CEO Rocha was fabulous and had a lot of support from our steering committee. And thank you for those kind words. We're excited about it as well. This is the right thing to do, and we want to make it intentional to the communities that we are going to be hosting this again, and we invite all to apply. Thank you for that. Next slide, please. Are there any additional questions? Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Amos. We really appreciate it. Again, a lot of great work and a lot of progress. You know, if we all reflect, directors and others, we reflect back, you know, over the past year and months, if we think about all of the challenges of hiring and quite frankly, the great progress we've made here, really appreciate it. And we know that there's work to be done, but we want to acknowledge the progress that's been made. Next, we'll have Director Harrington and Erin Galena will now review the Managed Care Committee metrics. That committee did not meet this month, so metrics are being presented directly to the board. Director Harrington.
As you said, the committee did not meet this month. Our next regular meeting is scheduled to be held on Friday, April 21st at 10:30 a.m. The committee is due to present metrics, so I'm going to turn it over to Erin Gleaner, Chief Administrative Officer of Health Plan Services, and he will review the metrics today. No motion is needed. The metrics are presented for informational purposes only.
Thank you and good morning, directors. Starting on slide 3 with our membership, you can see we've continued to grow to 451,000, just shy of 452,000, and looking forward into membership for April, we're expecting that growth to continue to just over 455,000 members. The next slide shows our market share data, which has held pretty steady. This data is through January from the state, so it's a little bit lagged, but we're continuing to be in the 32.6% range, and the rest of the market is also held pretty steady. The next slide shows our growth versus the overall Cook County Medicaid managed care market, and over the past 12 months, we've continued to outpace that overall Medicaid managed care market, but generally have tracked pretty closely to the overall trends that we've seen in Cook County. The next slide shows our membership compared to our budget. You can see that we budgeted for redetermination to begin earlier this year, so we're continuing to outpace the budget with the growth that we're seeing, but we do expect redetermination to begin here in the next few months. The next slide is a new slide, but I wanted to provide some of the most recent information we've received from the state about redeterminations. and we'll certainly be talking more about this at our managed care committee in April. But if you look at the far right column, those are the total number of members that are going to be up for redetermination by month based on the latest data we've gotten from the state. I'll make a note that March, April, and May, you'll see at the bottom of the slide, we're still waiting for some information on those funds. The column on the left, what we call the estimated Form B members, these are individuals that will have to complete paperwork and send it back into the state. The difference between these two numbers are individuals that will automatically renew or automatically requalify because they have submitted information for other programs that the state is able to leverage their eligibility information from. So for example, SNAP benefits, they're also able to automatically requalify for someone for Medicaid. So for example, in that first month there in June, 28,000 total members will be up for redetermination. Just around 9,000 of those members are expected to automatically renew or requalify, which leaves about 19,883 that will have to complete paperwork and resubmit that paperwork to the state. The next slide shows our overall operations metrics, including our call center, which is one area that we're continuing to track is the percent of calls answered in less than 30 seconds. We have made some changes here and are expecting these metrics to improve here over the next couple months. And then claims encounters and acceptance rates are performing within the SLA. The next slide shows inpatient admissions per 1,000. Blue bars are current period, red bars are prior. So we're continuing to trend better than prior period in inpatient admission per 1,000. And while it's a little hard to see, the faint blue bars there is projected forward, and you can see that we're projecting to continue to outperform the prior period. The next slide shows our COVID vaccination rates, and we'll also be providing more detailed breakdowns of this at our managed care committee in April, including some more race, ethnicity, and geographic data about these vaccination rates. But this shows COVID vaccinations compared to CDC benchmarks broken down by age categories. And then this slide shows our claims payment trends. As you've may recall me discussing earlier, we had an uptick at the end of last year, early this year as the budget rollover and system updates happened, but we've driven that backlog of claims payments back down to pretty close to where our goal is at the 30-day mark. And then the next slide just shows that broken down by the aging category specifically, and you can see the progress we've made, especially in that 30 to 60-day category, which is almost trended down from 62 down to 16 million. So we're getting very close to eliminating all the claims over the 30-day mark. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Directors, do we have any questions? Director Store here.
Aaron, I have going back to redetermination. I know you talked about this once a couple of times about the limitations on what you're able to do in terms of encouraging individuals to sign up with county care. Can you talk a little bit about what you and your team are doing right now to encourage individuals without sort of crossing the line, as you shared with me once before, in terms of redetermination in marketing and sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of different efforts across multiple teams across the entire organization. So and I'll give you kind of two buckets. The first being general awareness, marketing, and informational campaigns. And those have mostly up until this point been focused on assisting individuals to update their demographic information with the state, so ensuring they've got the right address information so the forms put the right place. We're in the process as we get closer, and as we now have, we just received from the state some of the information I shared around who the specific members are going to be and which month we'll be going through the redetermination process. So as those letters start to drop from the state, which will begin towards the end of April, in conjunction with that, we have campaigns that are lined up that will include, for example, text messaging outreach to those individuals, outbound calls to those individuals. Those that are engaged with the care coordinator will be working with them. Anyone who calls into the call center that's on that list would be flagged and walked through the process. We have pharmacy point of sale messaging that has been set up. So there's a broad array of different outreach activities that will really ramp up here. We have to time that in a particular window, because if we talk to an individual and they're not in that window of time, there's nothing they can do. So we want to make sure that they get the outreach, but also the outreach at the right point in time that they can take the action and complete that paperwork. And then the health system also has an application assistance team. And so they can also help someone very specifically all the way through the application process itself and the redetermination form itself, and help them submit that information into the state. So we've got a lot of different avenues and a lot of different activities that are really launching into full speed here over the next month.
Thank you, Gary.
Hi, I'd like to, this is Director Curry, just to piggyback on Director Story's question. Aaron, I know we're talking about this and we'll continue, but it would be just as important that you put some numbers to those activities. A lot of activities going on, but at the end of the day, it's going to be important to know how effective those touches and the reach outs and the follow-ups and everything else were, and the number of individuals who were touched in each of these buckets. So while it's in front of you, you may want to think about what are the handful of metrics that will be critical for us to show the effectiveness of your team's efforts.
Yep, absolutely.
Correct.
Aaron, I have a question as well.
Okay.
I think I asked you about this before, and I just looked at the numbers you put up for June. I think there's approximately 68% of your people that will not automatically be renewed, which is pretty healthy. And you also mentioned, I think there's around approximately 10,000 people per month that tend not to renew or be able to be reached as a result of activities that you're doing. So the question becomes now, have we been able to figure out a way to determine who those people are and to try to get to them earlier?
Yeah, so let me just talk through maybe a specific month as an example. So in June, where there's around 30,000 total individuals, we expect about 30% of those are going to automatically renew really in any given month, and the numbers will vary month to month. So about 10,000 of those individuals would automatically renew, which would leaves roughly 20,000 who will have to go through an action to complete the form. So those forms will be mailed out from the state right at the end of April, beginning of May. And so at that point, the window sort of opens for them to actually complete the redetermination forms. So anything before then or after a certain period of time is sort of outside the window of when we need to get them to take the action. So there'll be campaigns leading in where as those forms get mailed out, there's text messaging that will go out to provide reminders and also information for support. That will go to every member. Outbound outreach calls will also go across the board. And then there's more direct kind of specific outreach between care coordination teams. Also information is provided to their PCPs, which is really one of the most effective means of outreach, is when the PCP itself is able to connect with the member. So there's more high touch, high engagement for some of those harder to reach members. But the timing of that, to your question about, are we able to start some of that earlier? We have some of those mechanisms that will really hit right off the bat. So example, the text messaging will happen right at the very beginning when the letters are dropping, but then some of those other efforts will build over time, especially as we're able to identify members that we know may be harder to connect with.
I'll tell you something that happened to me this week that I found interesting. I wasn't sure if it was a function of something that you were doing, but I have two kids that are in CPS schools. And my wife and I both received an email and a phone call saying that if we were on Medicaid, that is redetermination time. And I thought that was actually pretty interesting that they sent out that blast. And I'm not sure if that's a lever that you guys are pulling or able to pull to go through kids, preferably if they have it, to be able to reach the parents, because as we all know, one of the biggest issues inside of this market is bad data. And so no one's been able to crack that nut. How did you get past that? And that's an interesting one. I've never experienced that before, to get a call from my kid's school about redetermination. So that was pretty cool, I thought.
Yes, and absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that. I forgot to mention community-based organizations, but CPS is obviously a major one, and one that we've built a partnership with. And certainly CPS has their own outreach efforts that they're making, but we've also been working with them to do specific outreach and have those mechanisms in place as this launches.
This is Director Harrington. I don't have a question. It's really more a comment and an observation. And I think that a lot of us are very concerned about this issue of redetermination. When we look at the total number of covered lives that county care has, we're close to 500,000 people. That's quite a bit. That's quite a large number of people that could be left in limbo moving forward. And this could go very well and very smoothly, or it could go very badly. So I'm sure we're all anxious about this, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But I'm also reminded that had it not been for the public health emergency, we wouldn't be in this situation as well. And that's getting ready to end soon, and that's going to change significantly a lot of things in everybody's lives. So please keep us advised of what's going on. And if you see some red flags, please let us know sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions? Thank you, Director Harrington. Thank you, Mr. Galiner. Next, Director Story will now review the Quality and Patient Safety Committee meeting minutes. Director Story. Director, we lose Director Story.
Thank you, Chairman. The Quality and Patient Safety Committee met last Thursday, on March 23rd at 10:30 a.m. We are not planning to review the metrics in the presentations this morning. That information is enclosed, and staff is available to answer any questions that any members of the board might have this morning. The next meeting of the committee will be held on April the 20th at 10:30 a.m. The committee received the following reports, which once again are included in the minutes: the HR steering, the ideal state, translating strategic goals and action plans, 30-day readmission rate information, case mix information, top box scores, and the tracking, the HEDIS, the A1C information. We received regulatory and accreditation updates, which once again are included in the minutes, and staff is available this morning or afterwards to answer any questions, follow-up questions that you might have. We received EMS and MEC reports, the Stroger Hospital and Provident Hospital Quality Committee summaries. And once again, this information is included. The committee approved the following actions, which are included in the minutes. They were Stroger and Provident Hospital medical staff appointments and reappointments and other changes. The committee did go into closed session, but we're not expected to re-review that information. So the minutes are being presented for the board's consideration this morning as part of the combined motion to be made later in this meeting. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the Quality and Patient Safety Committee report.
Thank you very much, Director Story. Next, we have Director Reiner, who will review the Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met on Thursday, March 23rd at 9 a.m. The next meeting of the committee is going to be held on Thursday, April 20th at 9 a.m. Again, as Director Story said, we're not planning to have staff re-review reports and contracts from the Finance Committee. While you're reviewing the minutes, Deb will have a slide reflected with a list of contractual requests that are greater than $1 million. If any additional questions are raised, Charles, Pam, and staff will be present, ready to address. The committee considered the following action items, which are included in the minutes. We conditionally approved 30 contracts and procurement items, numbers 4, 5, 11, 12, 16, 17, 21, 26, and 30 are pending review by contract compliance. As I mentioned earlier, you'll see the contractual requests on the screen from the Finance Committee whose fiscal impacts are greater than $1 million, which are highlighted. We received and filed grant award related items. We received and filed transfer of funds. The committee received the following reports, which are also included in the minutes. The MWB, the Minority Business Women Business Enterprise Report, the Q1 fiscal year 2023 report of contracts executed under the authority of the CEO, a report of the January fiscal year 2023 financials. The action items, reports, and presentations from the committee are included in the meeting minutes. There are no other questions on the information. The minutes are being presented for the board's consideration as part of the combined motion that's going to be made later in the meeting. So with that, Mr. Chairman, again, unless there's questions for staff, that's the report.
Do not see any questions. And as you and Director Story highlighted, that we have very, very detailed information within the minutes that were provided before. So thank you. We do not actually have any contracts being presented directly to the board for consideration. So if there are no other questions on the minutes and the action items being presented for consideration, we can move on to the next item. As everyone reflects, is there any additional questions? Thank you. I believe the next item is a request for approval of a lease renewal, which has to come before the board, and that's being presented by Ms. Andrea Gibson. Ms. Gibson, are you here?
Yes, good morning. Andrea Gibson, Chief Strategy Officer. The item before you is to enter into a lease for about 1,000 square feet for the purpose of public health storage related to the inspectors that work near on the south side, the sanitarians and so on. And so this is an annual cost of about $13,000.
So this is just for public health storage supplies, if we're right. For the
That's correct, yes.
Directors, any questions? Looks like there are no questions. Thank you, Ms. Gibson. If there are no other questions on the minutes and action items being presented for consideration, we can move on to the combined motion. Be patient, it's a long one. I'd like to entertain the following combined motion to approve the following. Item 4A, February 24th board meeting minutes. Item 4D, March 23rd minutes of the Quality and Patient Safety Committee meeting, which include the Stroger and Provident Hospital staff, medical staff appointments, reappointments, and changes. Item 4E, March 23rd minutes of the Finance Committee meeting, which include contracts and procurement items, grant award related items, and transfer of funds. And item 5B, request for approval of renewal lease with Imperial Realty Company as landlord and the County of Cook as tenant for storage space at 800 Holiday Plaza in Madison, Illinois. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr.
moved.
Chairman.
Second, Director Harrington.
Thank you. The combined motion has been made and seconded. And the secretary, will you please take the roll call vote on the combined motion?
Roll call vote on the combined motion. Aye or nay, Director Bott is absent. Director Curry,
Aye.
Vice Chair Deere,
Here is I.
Director Garza is absent. Director Harrington,
Aye.
Director Kim is absent. Director Ryder,
I would like to, but for there, I would like to flag a recusal that I took, or an abstention I took under the Finance Committee meetings as request to a contract awarded to United Way of Metro Chicago as I serve as a board of director. So just highlighting that, and to the extent that this is a ratification of that contract, I'm abstaining, but otherwise aye on all other
thank
items.
you. Director Robinson,
Aye.
Director Sorrell,
Aye.
Director Story,
Aye.
Director Webster Cross,
Aye.
and Chair Taylor.
Aye.
You have 9 yeas, 3 absent, notwithstanding Director Ryder's present vote and abstention on request number 2 under the contracts in the finance minutes.
Thank you. The ayes have it. The combined motion carries. The next item is Employment Plan Officers Semi-Annual Report, which will be presented by Kimberly Kraft and Andrew Jester. Ms. Kraft and Mr. Jester.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is
Good
Kim
morning.
Kraft. Good morning. I'm the Employment Plan Officer. As you know, the employment plan and its supplemental policies contain proactive and transparent policies, practices, and procedures that govern our hiring process and our other employment actions. They are designed to prevent and remedy the negative impacts of unlawful political discrimination and political contacts, and to support employment activity consistent with our commitments to diversity and to providing equal employment opportunity regardless of any legally protected status. In summary, my office's function is to train staff at all levels on the plan and policies, to oversee compliance via monitoring and auditing, to develop strategies and any policies and procedures necessary to support compliance, and to investigate and report on non-compliance. I'm also required to issue reports semi-annually in March and September, describing my office's monitoring and auditing activities, any violations identified, and any remedial actions recommended, and whatever corrective action has been taken by Cook County Health to address the violations. So thank you for allowing me an opportunity today to provide you with a summary of the somewhat lengthy EPO semi-annual report that was issued to you last week. The full report is available to the public for review on our website. The report focuses on activity between July 1st of last year and December 31st of last year. And I also plan to provide you with information about additional activity of interest on the horizon. Okay, so let's start with what is new. A lot of progress was made in the reporting period. As you know, the employment plan is a living document and can be amended from time to time as our needs change. The last time I presented to you, I advised of the fact that a temporary modification to the plan had been approved to provide for expedited hiring until 1,500 employees are hired. This process modified and streamlined general hiring and actively recruited processes. Those are our two most frequently used hiring processes, accounting for roughly 90% of our positions. Before that could be rolled out, though, HR and our hiring leaders had to receive training so that they would know how to implement. That training was offered to our hiring process participants in the summer and into the early fall, and the process was fully rolled out by early fall as post rollout PIDs vacancies were approved. The last time I presented, I also discussed approval of a temporary modification to our hiring fair process, also designed to expedite hiring. Since its initial approval, it was amended several times to better serve our needs. And as previously mentioned by Ms. Amos, this process is utilized quite frequently now and has resulted in a number of hires. I'd also like to speak to the optimization efforts. I know Ms. Amos provided you with some information on the optimization efforts, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to personally acknowledge and commend these efforts because many of them are of significant interest to our office. They support compliance implementation of the plan and provide transparency. An example would be Hiring Central, which she mentioned to you. This provides our hiring leaders with a one-stop shop containing information and resources necessary to properly implement our hiring processes. There's another dashboard that provides leaders with greater access and transparency into the status of our active hiring processes. So I find that very significant and wanted to report on that. In past reports, I have spoken about staffing in our department. Like other departments, we have experienced challenges in terms of being fully staffed. Andrew Jester is our new program manager. He started just prior to the start of the reporting period and came here after more than 10 years at the Office of the Independent Inspector General, where he provided external oversight over our plan and those of other county offices. And with that significant experience, he was able to quickly jump in and start making a very big difference here, especially with the backlog of pending investigations that we have into allegations of noncompliance. We also brought on a new information coordinator in September to help us with tracking and sorting of information that comes to our office. This role is critical given the volume of information and documentation that we receive. So very happy to report on all of that. Next slide. Okay, now moving on to our monitoring observations. As I mentioned, one of our functions is to monitor and audit and to evaluate, how we're doing in terms of compliance. A big focus for this report and what we were looking at was this revised hiring process that was rolled out. It's new, a lot changed. It's very fast paced. So that was a big focus for us. So as you know, we cannot hire anyone here at Cook County Health if they don't meet the minimum qualifications for a position. So this new revised process adds an additional layer of validation by requiring interview panels to test experience and years of experience via minimum qualifications via specifically tailored interview questions. So that was one area. So this was new. We found that this implementation of this requirement does need some attention and support. The questions that were approved and utilized were often a little too vague to clearly and directly test for the MQ and put the panelists on notice when they were actually validating minimum qualifications. Compliance with this new requirement is especially important in light of the fast pace and the number of new employees and contracted support that are involved in our hiring processes. So we did do a sample review of 24 decision to hire packets for the revised hiring process that were all approved in the same week, and that resulted in offers being made. We felt that a majority of those included questions that did not properly implement that minimum qualification question requirement. And we did identify 4 candidates that very clearly did not meet the minimum qualifications that were offered positions here. This has been addressed via training with HR staff and via content that will be added to a hiring manager resource for interview questions that the optimization team is working on. So we do feel like that will be corrected going forward. And then we also identified that there were a few instances either where our interpretation of a minimum qualification differed from HR's and or the hiring departments, as seen when reviewing validation determinations, or where a candidate self-identified as not qualified, resulting in disqualification due to erroneous interpretation of the language used to describe a minimum qualification. So based upon these observations, we encourage our hiring departments and HR to ensure that the language in our job descriptions contain language specific enough that there's no question about how to interpret the minimum qualifications. When they're vague, subjectivity and the potential for inconsistent, erroneous interpretation presents itself, it also creates a vulnerability for abuse. The other thing that we wanted to point out is that we feel that there needs to be documentation of both of these temporary processes that is more formalized, especially with the hiring fair. It was amended several times after it was initially presented and approved. And so currently there's no single source document to consult for all process requirements. In order to properly implement, we need something to look at and some rules to follow there. And then we also believe that these documented processes need to be placed on the Cook County Health website alongside the plan to provide transparency into the public into how we are currently hiring. With respect to hiring fairs, the last I spoke, there was a planning process that we were working on to plan compliant fairs that was necessitated given some amendments that were approved that significantly reduced the noticed and posting periods before a fair would be held. So at that time, I shared that, the planning process had not been implemented in the manner intended. I'm happy to report that since that time, the process has evolved and we noted very significant improvement there. We also, though guidance is provided to the hiring departments throughout the process via HR's involvement in the planning process and by walkthroughs provided to hiring department leaders regarding their roles and flow on the day of the fair, we believe a more comprehensive approach is also necessary to ensure consistent and compliant implementation at all stages. Though our teams are very familiar with how to interview candidates and how to complete documents related to interviews and their selections, their decisions, we noticed that some of the documentation specific to hiring fairs has not been fully or accurately completed. So document maintenance was also identified as an area requiring additional attention. This is a very complex process, and transparency via full documentation and an audit trail is critical. This is something I wanted to point out that HR leadership had also independently identified. And when we last spoke, they'd already been working on improvements to that process and have been collaborating with us and seeking our input. Progress there is ongoing. Moving on, then I believe you can, moving on to our supplemental policies. I've spoken in past reports about our difficulties in assessing compliance with interim assignments and pay, given inconsistencies between the two policies and the use of one form for both. For this, yes.
I had a question before we get too far down the road,
Sure.
and I forget, you were talking about documentation previously.
Yes.
Could you expound on that and then the survey and the role that you play, that intersection between HR and your department relative to this documentation review, where there was some discrepancies? What do you mean about that? Could you just clarify what, or just expound on it?
Sure, absolutely. Sure. Thank you for stopping me. I was in my flow apparently, and I didn't see your hand raised there. So, our role, we are separate from HR. So our role is an oversight. We provide training, we provide guidance, we monitor and audit. And then when we see anything that raises a concern from a true policy or provision compliance standpoint, or some administrative processes that might lead to vulnerabilities, we point those out. And so, we're constantly in communication with HR as these things are identified. So with the review, I think that you were just talking about, were you talking about the decision to hire review?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so the decision to hire at the end of any given hiring sequence, right? So at the department level, they are interviewing candidates, they are evaluating candidates, they're making a hiring decision, and they assemble all of that paperwork and they send it to HR. And then HR goes through that, they sort through that to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, the process was followed before an offer is made. So that's the decision to hire packet that results at the end of a hiring process. And so what we did through our monitoring and auditing function, especially in light of our interest in the success of the use of those minimum qualification questions, was that we looked at a sampling of, I believe it was 24 packets, all that were approved inside of the same 1 week period, just to keep a very limited sample. And so we did see that, there definitely needs to be maybe some reinforced training and guidance on how to develop those questions for the hiring panels to use in the interviews, so that they are adding that additional layer and safeguard and ensuring that our candidates that they're interviewing meet the minimum qualifications. So already before they get to that point, they've committed to being eligible, right? So when they apply for a job, they're going to say on their application, Taleo asks them if they possess all of the minimum qualifications. So to even get that far, to be screened, they have to say that they do have those minimum qualifications. And then once they get past that part in the screening process, there's screening of application materials to make sure that not only do they check, yes, I have those minimum qualifications, but they also have to demonstrate within the four corners of their application materials that they possess the minimum qualifications. That doesn't mean, though, that sometimes, and it does happen, you're going to see a candidate that comes into an interview and they're going to admit that they actually don't possess a minimum qualification. And so this additional requirement, especially with the fast pace, was added to add one additional level of validation into the interview process, where the interview panels are asking the candidates specifically to demonstrate for them where and how they have those minimum qualifications. And so that's what we were looking at. And in many cases, the questions just were not quite specific enough to direct the candidates to clearly identify that experience. And in 4 of those cases, individuals were hired that did not actually meet the minimum qualifications.
Is this a random selection, those 24 cases? Do you focus on nursing, pharmacists, extracurricular techs, environmental service? You exist in a highly credential oriented work environment where you have to have a license if you're a nurse, a pharmacist, med techs, et cetera, et cetera. So do you target a certain job classification more so than others?
So in this particular case, we did not. So really what this started with is we started just by looking at 2 particular decision to hire packets, because they were high-level leadership positions and we were concerned that potentially they might have been brought on as direct appointments without us having advanced knowledge. That was an issue that we had identified in past reports that has since been resolved. So initially we looked at 2 just to make sure that they were hired through our revised hiring process, and we found that they were. But we also found that there were some non-standard documentation or not fully compliant documentation that raised some concerns that we wanted to take a deeper look. And so we decided just to broaden our sampling since they were both approved coincidentally the same week. We ended up looking at all decision to hire packets approved in that particular week that resulted in offers. So for this particular review that I'm talking about, that's how we went about it. But we also conduct just routine reviews periodically over the course of any reporting period that is not targeted in any way. It's random. Did I answer all your questions? I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. I'm just curious about your work, given that we do work in a healthcare environment, and in the healthcare environment, so many of those individuals by job classification have either, like say, regulatory requirements, licensure requirements, and I was just wondering, how do you spend your time?
Right. So we
sampling. I mean, RNs are RNs. You got to be licensed.
Right.
So do you go down that rabbit hole?
Yeah. So licensure is included in the minimum qualifications for every position that we have here. So if it's an RN position and it requires a license, that's going to be in the minimum qualifications. Those types of qualifications are not a part of this new minimum qualification question requirement, because they are validated by collecting the actual license or certification at the time of interview. So you don't have to ask about it. It's proven by collecting the documents at the time of interview. Yeah. And those are all inserted and assembled into those decision to hire packets. So it's a part of the screening that HR does when they're approving a packet before making hires. They're going to make sure all the paperwork is there, all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, transcripts are there, licenses or certifications, they're there, everything like that. They do that. And then when we do our reviews, we check for those same things.
Well,
so there's
Emily,
safeguards.
I was pleased to hear you say at the front end of your presentation about your efforts to work in parallel with HR in this endeavor. I think that's worth noting. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Yes, we work very closely together. Okay. But thank you for the good questions. I know I tend to get, I talk fast and there's a whole lot there, and it was, I know, a very lengthy report, so I'm trying to cover a whole lot in a brief summary here. I left off, I believe, with interim assignments, I believe. So interim assignments, as I mentioned early on, part of what we do is, we identify if additional, kind of implementational policies and procedures are necessary to kind of support compliance and support the process. So, with interim assignments and interim pay, we did note some inconsistencies between the two policies. It gets really confusing because they have kind of different requirements and the same forms used. Creates a lot of difficulty. So we did put this time a more detailed analysis in. We're not saying that necessarily that the assignments or the pay are, there's anything, we're concerned that there's been discrimination, right? But we need that transparency. That transparency is key. So that's where our interest is right now. And so it is my understanding that HR intends to address this. So that is something, I can report on, when I see you next in, I believe, September. I do expect that there will be progress to report at that point. Discipline is one of.
Scrap the before you can. Amos have it.
Oh, sure. Hi, Val.
Hey, Kim. Valerie, Amos again, CHRO. Just wanted to comment on Director Story's, just also respond to that. Kim and I have very frequent discussions about how we can make improvements to this process. As you know, board, we have established, as I mentioned before, the monthly job fairs, and this is exciting times for our organization. We have also been working within the communities to attend job fairs and events and host career days for college grads and all of that. So we're charting new territory, and with the new processes, it does take time for all of us to adjust and really training all of our hiring members. As Kim was mentioning about the training process, we have been in collaboration. I think, in addition to that, we will continue to collaborate. We will continue to, take the recommendations from our employment plan officer. Some of these are recommendations for, as she mentioned, transparency's sake. Some recommendations we have to put in a queue to kind of prioritize. These things may meet the standard, or but we will have to prioritize based on our immediate concerns to continue the acceleration of hiring. So some of our policies we will have to continue to look at. It might not be in our top priority at this moment, but we do accept her recommendations, and we will definitely be tracking and looking at that towards the next quarter when we have a little bit more time. So we don't want to slow hiring down. We want to be as efficient as possible, which is why I have, monthly meetings with our employment plan officer. They collaborate with us on all of our job fairs, reviewing all of our pre-planning forms, ensuring that we have met the compliance standards as it relates to hosting job fairs. And once those job fairs are in place, we want to ensure that managers are asking all of the appropriate questions, as she mentioned before, based on minimum qualifications. However, that's just a natural thing when people sometimes don't ask it the way that they need to ask. And so we'll continue to strive towards perfection as much as possible. So I just wanted to share those comments as well. Thank you, Ken.
Well, thank you. Do I see another hand up? I'm sorry.
Yes, Kim, on the slide, you have interim assignments. Do you mean yellow badges? Do you actually?
No,
Is there a difference?
No. So I think you're talking, a yellow badge would be our contractors. Interim assignments are when we have an employee here who is going to perform the role of another position on a temporary basis. So
Okay.
some are all of the duties of another position. And as you can imagine, with COVID and with, staffing shortages and things like that, there has been an increased need to utilize that policy.
So thank you for clarifying that, because
Yes.
I mean, there's a plethora of yellow badges.
Right. Yes.
So you're not talking
These
about
would
those
be
types of contracts.
Right. No, these would be employees, and there's a process in the policy to ensure that they, like with our permanent hires, right? There's the whole validation process I talked to you about, where we have to be sure that they're qualified to perform the duties that they will be performing in the role if hired. And the same holds true with our interim assignments. We don't want to assign someone to an interim role unless we are sure that they are qualified to perform that role.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the questions. So I believe where I left off was I was just starting to jump into discipline. So I'll get back to that. So, discipline, don't quote me on this. I believe it's probably the most frequently utilized of the supplemental policies. And so consistent with past practice, we review, they result in packets that get submitted to HR from the department when the process is completed, so that HR can process those, track them, maintain the file. And so we have access to those packets that get submitted to HR, and we randomly look at those to determine whether the process has been followed. We do look at not only policy violations themselves, but also any type of deviation from the administrative process that is required, that they are trained to perform, so that HR can do their job in terms of tracking, maintaining the file, and that sort of thing. So this time we looked at roughly 80 discipline packets. That's about half of the formal corrective action that was implemented in the period. Attendance, attendance continues to be the leading basis for discipline here. And let's see, the two most common issues that we identified for this particular period were when a department fails to attach all required documents when they submit to HR. So like I said, HR is responsible for maintaining the permanent file. So the departments are asked to submit everything, that not just the discipline form itself, but maybe there's a hearing officer decision, maybe there's evidence. If it's a termination, the termination letter. So in those cases, something was missing. And so that was consistent with our practice. What we do when we see that is we communicate that to the HR business partners, and they are generally the first line communication between the supervisors and HR relative to discipline. And so they are able to address those matters with the department so that they can get the file supplemented, or if there's anything missing or that needs to be corrected. So yeah, missing document would be one. And then another one would be when an employee's signature is missing. So obviously when you issue discipline to an employee, we like to see the employee's signature in order to be able to verify that the discipline was actually issued to the employee. So what happens oftentimes is an employee will refuse to sign the discipline form. And in those cases, and this is more of one of those administrative matters that I talked to you about, the expectation is that there will be a witness that can sign. There will be a notation on the face of the form explaining why the employee did not sign. It was given to them, but they refused to sign. And then there would be a witness signature to have someone that can verify that the documentation was actually provided to the employee. So that would be the second most frequent issue that we identified. We do know that HR wants to see a signature to verify that the employee did receive the discipline, or in the absence of that, some explanation for why they didn't sign, and a witness signature. And so that's what we saw, that the role of the HR business partner, I mentioned that the last time I spoke to you, the role was pretty new at that point. They are a fantastic addition to the HR team. Their role is broader than just discipline. They are there to support our hiring leaders with implementation of our policies. And so I personally have seen how effective they are, and would like to commend HR for creating that role and filling the positions. Moving on then to reclassifications. This is another area that HR and I will be working on, just to kind of come up with some procedures to ensure that we're receiving all the forms and that they are filled out correctly. I can report more to you on that in September. Moving on to, I believe that's it for this slide. Okay, moving on to third-party providers. So we do have one of our supplemental policies applies to third-party providers. Third-party providers are contractors that come in to assist with our hiring processes. And as you know, the employment plan, our hiring processes are complex. And so the policy speaks to what has to go into the contracts in terms of, a requirement to comply with the employment plan. In their, they're required to follow the same rules that we are. It requires that they be trained to perform those functions. It requires NPCCs, all those sorts of things. And so this was a policy we took a closer look at in the past reporting period, just because, with all of, our current situation, there are a lot of contractors that have come on in the past year or so that are assisting with our hiring processes, and we wanted to make sure we have a good, solid process in place to make sure that all of the documentation is being collected and we're able to verify that everyone's been trained appropriately. And so as part of this as well, we worked collaboratively with HR to develop an NPCC that is specific to our contractors. Last year, we also worked with the legal department to work on some language that would satisfy requirements across all of these contracts. So a lot of progress was made there. So, am I missing somebody? I'm sorry. Was there a hand up? No. Okay. So we are working with HR to kind of develop a standing operating procedure relative to that, making sure that we have, consistent documentation and file maintenance and those sort of things. And so I can speak more to that in the next report. Next slide, please. So moving on to investigations, as I mentioned very early on, investigations are one of the functions of the office. When there are allegations of non-compliance with the employment plan, complaints are made to our office. We open investigations. Some are simple and straightforward, some are more involved. At the end of ones requiring incident reports, we do issue an incident report that details, what the issue was that we were looking at, what the evidence uncovered, our analysis, was there a violation, was there not, do we have any recommendations? So that all goes into our incident reports. With short staffing over recent years, we had a very, and still have a very significant backlog of investigations, but we did have Andrew Jester. I mentioned him earlier. He joined us from the Office of the Independent Inspector General right before this reporting period started, and he has been able to make a significant progress towards our investigations. And so, as you can see from the slide, we received 5 new investigations in the reporting period. We closed 36, 10 resulting in incident reports, and still have 151 pending. It's worth noting, I do believe I mentioned to you last time we spoke, that there was an approved amendment to the employment plan that allows, that facilitates more expedited administration resolution of our complaints here in the office. So that has been implemented, and that really did help with a lot of those complaints, and we will continue to utilize that, and hopefully when I see you again, the pending number will be significantly smaller. Next slide. Okay, so what's coming in the future? There are a lot of great things coming in the future. I wanted to report, even though it's beyond the reporting period for the semi-annual report. I feel like it's very important to advise you of a hiring blitz process that's in development, and it's my understanding that it will be proposed for approval in the employment plan. It is a process that will facilitate, without going into too much detail, it will really facilitate short of a hiring fair. It really expedites and allows us to hire quickly and streamline hiring. So that's important, and that's coming soon. I do expect HR has committed to that comprehensive documentation of the 2 temporary revised hiring processes, so that we have all that. I do expect to see that shortly. The interim assignment and interim pay policy, that's of course on the radar, and I hope to have some updates for you the next time. And then finally, jumping to the bullet about the employment plan amendment. So the last time I reported to you, it was when the revised hiring fair process had just been implemented not long before that, and we were preparing to implement the revised hiring process that covers our general hiring and actively recruited, so 90% of our positions. And I know some of you expressed interest in, well, this is temporary. It's for, until we hire 1,500 employees. What are the plans for a permanent amendment? Will this become permanent? Will you, revert back to both of those positions? And at that point, I didn't have an answer, but I can tell you right now that there are collaborative efforts underway. I believe Ms. Amos referred to this earlier on, that there will be, currently our CEO is kind of assembling a multidisciplinary team to look at our hiring processes, and so that we can collaborate on ways to improve and streamline hiring. We do have, there are complexities involved. We want to be sure that, we are adhering to the principles of the employment plan, right? We also want to make sure that we are not violating, that they be consistent with collective bargaining agreement requirements. We want to make sure that changes that are made can be accomplished via, either the technical, the technologies that we have available currently, or that we have the opportunity to develop technologies that will support implementation. So I am really looking forward to these upcoming discussions, and I do expect that I will have a lot to report when I see you in September on that. Beyond that, we have training. Obviously, I talked to you about hiring fair training. I really do feel strongly that there needs to be a comprehensive module and resources out to both HR and to our hiring teams when they implement the hiring fair. When the Blitz process is approved, there will need to be training on that. And then we do need to update our annual supervisor training and our annual HR training, but keeping in mind that, if there are big changes on the horizon in the employment plan, we'll want to make sure that we're putting actually the new information in that annual training. So I would imagine that updates to the plan would come first. Next slide. What else are we working on? So HR, as I mentioned earlier, and Valerie joined in, we HR and my office work together quite often. We have several joint initiatives right now. One being training for administrative support. So we talked about the DTH packet submission and how important that is to the process. Having those assembled correctly to begin with, and making sure all those I's are dotted and T's are crossed is so important to keeping things moving, because when packets are sent to HR that are not complete or have errors contained in them, that results in a back and forth that can take time. So we both have an interest in training the hiring department's administrative support teams so that they can be a valuable resource and keeping it, in submitting compliant DTH packets from the very get-go to avoid any unnecessary delays. Another joint initiative is, we talked earlier about the optimization team and how they developed the Hiring Central, right, which is an excellent one-stop shop for our hiring leaders so that they see the rules for the hiring process. They can access the forms that they need and resources that they need. It's wonderful. And so the HR business partner team, I mentioned, they are kind of the first line to the hiring departments, or with our departments for discipline. They've been working with my office to develop something similar for the discipline process so that we can, Director Story, did you have a question?
I'll wait till you finish.
Okay, just let me know whenever. So it's going to be, I'm very excited about it. It's going to put all of the information and resources, the forms, some samples, all of that in one place so that they're not, having to go all over the place. And I think it will really support compliance, and it will efficiency as well. So that is in progress. I think that's coming in the very near future. Obviously, I mentioned data management. That's something we've been talking about with HR. And then updated employment plan website content and a new EPO page. So, one of the things that we need to have is transparency. The employment plan requires certain information be maintained on our website. And so one of the observations I had in the last report was that some of the information, was kind of hidden and disorganized. Some of it was, there was some outdated information in there that could be removed, that sort of thing. And so we've been working collaboratively with HR and their consultants to refresh information and reorganize it in a more user-friendly way. And so that is coming definitely in the very near future. As other website updates, the plan does require that we maintain current job descriptions on our website. We're not there yet, but there are efforts underway through contracting, the contract team, and through HR to get the websites or to get the job descriptions up on our website. So hopefully I will have that will be completed by the next time I report to you. And then the last thing I will report on is EPO staffing. So I did speak to you earlier about, definitely thrilled to have our new program manager and our new information coordinator in the office. That is the extent of our office currently. So myself, a manager, and an information coordinator. We are currently without an employment compliance analyst. And so with that position has been posted. It's in the hiring process. It's moving quickly, thankfully. And so I do expect that I will be reporting to you that we have an analyst when we meet in September. That role is very important for the day-to-day monitoring and auditing of the office. Director Story, can I answer a question for you?
Yes, and it's first of all, thank you for a very comprehensive report. Look forward to hearing the changes. And in September, you referenced in terms of your staffing and outstanding pending cases,
Yes.
the 151, and I'm sure there's a direct correlation with manpower and your ability to address some of these cases. My question is, do you keep the individuals involved in these cases updated on the aging process? I mean, you obviously can't address all 151. So how do you manage that process to keep people informed? Or are you required to respond after a case is open? Is there some obligations that your office have to meet?
Yes, so there is a period of time that's contained in the employment plan that really anticipates when an investigation will be concluded, and a letter that goes out when it's not by that time. And beyond that, we're always very responsive when individuals reach out to us for status updates. And so we try to be as communicative as possible. But yes, some of these investigations that are currently in the backlog, the 151, quite honestly, some of them are very aged. And so some of them might, the individuals who made the complaint, or, who were involved in the complaint are no longer with us. And so sometimes that presents challenges as well, which is why we did get that new administrative process approved for the plan that's helping us kind of work through some of those types of complaints as well, or with complaints that really don't raise employment plan, official complaints raised with our office that really do not raise employment plan issues. And so we are trying to work through those as quickly as we can, so that we can, focus on them and quickly address them as they come in fresh.
In September, Kimberly, would you please provide us with an age account for these cases?
Sure. So just a list of all of the cases that we have and when they were, the case numbers and when they were filed.
Yes, so we can see how
Absolutely.
they've aged out, because to your point, some of the cases that you have in currently, the individual is no longer employed. So if we're talking about cases that are 270 days, 180 days, I think that's problematic for the organization.
Right. So yeah, we will work through that, and I will have a report for you in September.
Thank you, ma'am.
I believe that's all I had to report on. Was there another slide? Let's see. Nope, that's it. So does anyone have any additional questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Graff. Appreciate it. The next item is a report from the CEO. Mrs. Rocha. I'm sorry, before we move on, Director Webster Cross, I see your hand raised.
Yes, hi, Chair. If you could recognize Director Webster Cross regarding the combined motion voted on earlier in the meeting, which included the March 23rd Finance Committee meeting minutes. Can you please record me as voting present on request number 1 regarding Flowers Communication Group within the contracts and procurement items combined within the minutes?
Yes, we can. Madam Secretary, please note the revised vote.
Will do. Thank you.
Again, the next item is a report from the CEO, Mr. Rocha.
Thank you, Chairman. We're going to start with some special recognitions, and I'm going to also have someone join me shortly for an introduction. So we're very happy to talk about a new executive leader who's joining our team. Donica Austin Cathy. Ms. Cathy has been named as the Chief Hospital Executive for John Strozier Hospital. She has more than 25 years experience in the executive healthcare leadership realm and specializing in operation and service line management, as well as corporate compliance, strategic development, and patient experience. Ms. Cathy comes to Cook County Health after serving as president of Holy Cross Hospital and vice president of operations, acute care hospitals at Sinai, Chicago. So I'm pleased to present to the board and say her first welcome to everyone, Ms. Donica Austin Cathy. Donica.
Thank you, Mr. Rocha. It is a pleasure to meet all of you, and it's truly an honor to be serving in this role as Chief Hospital Executive. I look forward to working closely with our talented doctors and nurses and the staff to ensure high quality care and excellent patient experience. Thank you again, and thank you all for the warm welcome to Cook County Health.
Welcome.
Welcome. Glad to have you on board.
Thank you so much, Donica, and welcome, and thank you for joining the Cook County Health family. We're excited about the work that will be lying ahead and what we're going to do together. So thank you so much for joining our team. We're excited to have you. On the next slide, you will see also we want to give a special recognition to Dr. Lamar Hasbrook, who is our Chief Operating Officer at the Public Health Department. Dr. Hasbrook has been awarded the 2023 UCLA Public Service Award. The award recognizes Dr. Hasbrook's inspiring dedication to service of the public and his embodiment of UCLA's mission of public service. An award ceremony will be held on May 13th. So congratulations to Dr. Lamar for his recognition for the University of California, Los Angeles Public Service Award. Next slide.
Congratulations.
We also want to recognize Dr. Alicia Winfield, who is being recognized by the National Minority Quality Forum 40 Under 40. Congratulations, Dr. Westfield, Assistant Program Director for the Cook County Health Simulation Center and Emergency Medicine Physician, for being selected as a recipient of the prestigious National Minority Quality Forum's 40 Under 40 Leaders in Minority Health Award. The award program celebrates the next generation of thought leaders, focusing on reducing health disparities across our country. Congratulations, Dr. Winfield. Next slide. Also, we want to recognize Ms. Hannah Paradise. Congratulations to Ms. Paradise, a child life specialist from Strozier Hospital, for being awarded the one-person program conference scholarship from the Association of Child Life Professionals. Ms. Paradise was selected among outstanding applicants to attend the ACLP conference, where she will learn about the latest updates in the profession, hear from experts in multiple domains, and strengthen professional ties in the areas of child life safety. So we're very excited, want to have her as an expert member of the Cook County Health team, but in recognition of her scholarship and success in helping to advocate for child safety across the country. Thank you, Ms. Paradise. Next slide. And we also want to recognize, as we've talked about, we have a commitment to excellence program where our team recognizes other team members for making amazing things happen, extraordinary acts to protect our institution, protect our patients, and improve safety and drive excellence in our organization. So we would like to recognize Dwayne Mack from our Materials Management Department, who was recognized by his team for exemplary service and his commitment to excellence. Sobe Joseph and Jeanette Wise from our physical therapy team, who are also recognized by their team and across the institution selected. Diane Creel from ACHN and Maribel Tejeda from Strozier Hospital for being recognized from their different teams and units as driving excellence across our organization. Next slide. So just also want to give a quick update on our strategic plan, as we've been bringing this every month. So I want to focus on a few items that we've accomplished. So for March 2023, we have launched the CI Care Training and Train the Trainers program. This is a program that helps our team be able to learn how we can do better for our patients, how we can drive excellence in care, and ensure that we are doing everything to be there for our patients and taking the feedback that we get from our patients, from our HCAP scores, in improving the processes and improving the training. And so we're so happy from our patient experience department for helping to launch this program. We also completed the I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied this morning, digitization of our credentialing applications process. I apologize for that, as we know that one of the things we want to do is get our positions working as quickly as possible. So being able to go from paper to digital records is the best way to make sure that we can make that happen. We also expanded our county care coordination per member per month programs to make sure that we're providing more medical homes and expanded resources to everyone who's being able to get Medicaid services. Our market research findings were compiled and directed into our 2023 marketing campaigns for county care and across our different organizations. We also maintained our stroke certification during a recent survey from the Joint Commission. We piloted an agreement to use 340B pricing for county care provider. We also had additional behavioral health resources added to our Provident Emergency Department. Research councils were added to the Cerner, research consents were added to our Cerner EMR program, and we implemented telehealth home visits for Cook County Department of Public Health nurses. Coming soon in the upcoming months, we hope to have our National Commission on Correctional Healthcare Accreditation survey results. We are launching our room refresh program at Strozier for intense cleaning and maintenance. We are exploring partnership with UOC on cardiac diagnostic services. We're implementing leadership rounding tools. We will have a budget deploying a productivity 101 on monitoring against financial benchmarks, exploring providing methadone services at our health centers, expected to implement diversity and matching residents program, which you're going to hear from today, but take the pilot that we had and make it a permanent program. And county care will be implementing a new PBM on July 1st. So these are some of the things that you will hear coming forward. On the next slide, we just want to have a special presentation. Oftentimes we get questions about what we're doing to drive our capital improvement. And so I would like to recognize Craig Williams, our interim Chief Administrative Officer for Operations and Development, to walk you through our CIP budget and the equipment and projects that we have coming forward in the next few years. Craig?
Thank you, Israel. Thank you, directors. My name is Craig Williams. I'm the interim Chief Administrative Officer for Developments and Operations at Cook County Health. I want to walk through the some of the capital improvement that we have going on across our campuses. And this first slide just provides a summary. We have about $66 million of capital improvement projects that we're launching in FY23. I've kind of split them between planning activities, things that are more future leaning, looking at the organization, how we want to create that plan to replenish our facilities moving forward. Programmatic investments that would actually hit our clinical care offerings over the next several years, as well as infrastructure improvements. So things that are affecting our facilities in mechanical systems and air handlers that not everyone sees, but obviously are critically important to providing excellent care and excellent infection control. The FY23, so this $66 million is not inclusive of the entire investment, as these projects are in various stages of design, planning, construction. So as I'll go through some of the projects, you'll see that they're in a planning stage, and maybe the budget might be to fund that planning process. And then we get into construction in future years, there'd be larger investments needed. Like I said, the funding will continue over multiple years. And while the investments are significant, the timelines for these projects are long. And so our goal in operations is really to ensure that Cook County Health is beating our deadlines for decision-making, ensuring that we're actively prioritizing the most important projects so that we can use these dollars to really grow what we're doing at Cook County Health and do it in the most timely manner possible. Next slide. Thank you. So just on the infrastructure improvement highlights, I won't go through everything, but these are major projects focused on bringing the mechanical systems, air handlers, and other building infrastructure up to today's standard. We actually have construction on many of these projects that would begin in late 2023. We're actively working with the Cook Capital Planning Department and Earl Manning's group. We'll be kicking off we're actually working on the Provident elevator modernization, and we'll be installing a new rooftop unit for the dialysis center at Provident. We're just about in the next week or so going to replace the glass at the front of the emergency department to provide more safety for the staff there and some ballistic prevention elements to that glass. So you'll see some construction on the front entrance of the emergency department, as well as a Strozier elevator modernization. Next slide. and sorry, this is a little bit small, but just in terms of Stroger, in terms of clinical improvements that are happening, and I won't go through every slide and every line item, but if anyone had a question, I can certainly just jump right in. So one major project we have going on this year, we have $3 million of budget to relocate our mail order pharmacy. We're actually working with the real estate department right now to find a new site for that. It's in a sub-optimized space within Stroger, and so we're looking to really expand that program. We have 2 projects that are focused on our emergency department, really looking at entrance improvements as well as the waiting room and expansion of that space. We're looking to improve operations of our cath lab. We have a major project going on in the cath lab. And then we can switch to the next slide. In terms of Providence, so number of projects kicking off at Providence. What I would say is some are in the planning stage, so like the bicycle rack storage system, the GI suites and the women's pavilion are sort of kicking off into planning now. 2 projects that are very highly related that we're doing a lot of design work on right now is the critical stabilization unit at Providence Hospital, and then the inpatient behavioral health unit. So we're really working through that design process and hope to go out to procure construction documents, and the initial programs will start to come online in early 24 into later 24 for the inpatient behavioral health. We're installing, yes, Director Harrington.
Yeah, I see that you're putting in this bicycle rack storage system. Is this something new or something being repaired? A lot of people riding their bikes to Providence, or is this for staff?
Yeah, at both facilities, we're putting in, we've definitely heard from our frontline colleagues that they are seeking alternative ways to commute. And so we're putting in bicycle storage rack systems at both facilities.
Yeah, as Craig said, we're really excited about this project because it's one that was selected by our staff. When they were surveyed what's one of the things that they would like to see, this was really highly ranked amongst them. So as our staff is healthier and taking new healthier means of transportation, we're happy to support them in that process.
Well, a follow-up question in a sense, so they'll be riding a bike to work and they may have to change clothes and may have to shower. I mean, are there some other collateral things that will have to take place to make sure that they can not only get to work, but then they can be, if they're a physician serving a patient, they could be on the floor and taking care of patients?
Craig, do you want to take that? But yes, there is accommodation for them to be able to have lockers, storage, and be able to have a place where they can shower and change and get into their area. And get into, I guess, their outfit to best be able to ride their bike appropriately. So there will be all those accommodations taken to make sure we provide them all that they need so that they can be able to ride their bike to work safely.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks. And I think that's an important piece of the communication that goes along with all of these projects as we're launching. That's a good example of reminding folks what those facilities that are available to them and making that work for them. The other thing I did want to highlight was the nurse call system at Providence. We're launching that project. It's in construction right now. We have a system that is not optimized for the care that we're providing at Providence. So this will really upgrade communication for our teams within Providence. Couple of imaging projects happening. They're right about to go into the planning stage within our ACHN clinics that will bring additional imaging quality to those sites. Next slide, please. And then a number of projects that are really planning. So we'll launch into some planning. We have a Stroger Hospital master facility planning process that's we're just going back into RFP to select a planner for a long-term plan for Stroger and improvements we need there. And then as well as all of our, we're trying to develop a plan for our ACHN sites so that we know when we have to plan to either reinvest in those clinics or move to a different facility. So a lot of activity happening there. Next slide. And then lastly, outside of capital improvement projects, we also have medical equipment. So we're able to pull together about $32 million of capital improvement as medical equipment capital budget for this year. Really kind of focused in some broad categories. So about $7 million of improvements for our radiology departments. Another $7 million would affect our operating rooms and really ensuring that our surgeons have the latest and greatest equipment within the operating room. We have about $10 million of IT improvements, most notably $7.5 million of desktop replacements to really get everyone within a 5-year replacement cycle on our desktop. So that's been an issue for us, as well as some improvements for workstations on wheels. And then about $8 million of capital improvements directly targeted to patient care services. So the things that sometimes get a little bit lost in the shuffle, but things like side chairs for patient rooms, side tables for patient rooms, and other types of direct patient care equipment that we need to reinvest in. So I think we're really excited about the investments happening on our campus, and we're really looking forward to drive execution of this. Director Harrington.
What's a stealth station?
So a stealth station is a navigational software and equipment that's used in neurosurgery within our operating room.
Thank you.
Sure. Next slide, please. So just in terms of next steps, so really, like I said, really focused on execution of this plan. Operations, finance, nursing are all working together to make sure that we're acquiring this equipment. We're getting that through the contracting and procurement process, working with IT on that refresh I mentioned. We're also working to manage our FY23 CIP plan, but then we're also developing FY24, and that's starting up today. And then we're looking to refine our long-term plan for both capital equipment as well as capital improvement projects. Happy to answer any questions, but it's really exciting to be part of a system that is reinvesting this much in their operations.
If there's any questions for Craig, do just want to highlight that the entire team is doing tremendous work working together, and want to congratulate Craig and his team and also our strategic planning division and our finance and everyone coming together to be able to make sure that we're making the most strategic investments in what we're doing to drive quality, improve access, and bringing together, as we have talked about, our initiatives to expand our capabilities in cardiology, in neurosciences, in oncology, and helping to make the difference across all our specialties and clinics, that we're creating the most robust Cook County Health system possible for our community. So thank you for the team, and also thank you to our board and to the commissioners for continuing to invest in our mission. That mission is also critically important, and that we're also investing in the human capital, and who was helping to create our system, not just today, but for the future. And so I'm so pleased in the next section of my report to highlight Shannon Andrews and Dr. Claudia Fegan, who together with an amazing cohort of physicians did an amazing work in helping to drive some equity and diversity in our incoming residency classes, and they took some unique efforts to make sure that everyone, especially physicians who are here locally in our community, were able to participate in the program's education and training that we have. Again, this was also a request from our board and from our community that we ensure that we're trying to do everything possible to bring and secure talent to our community. So with that, I'm happy to present Shannon Andrews and Dr. Claudia Fegan to talk about the graduate medical education, diversity and equity inclusion initiatives. Shannon and Dr. Fegan.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Board of Directors. It's my honor to be able to join my colleague, Dr. Fegan, to report out on some of the great work that's being done by our GME team as it relates to improving inclusion and diversity amongst our residents. Just by way of background, although I'm certain that many of you are already aware of this, we really are building on a rich legacy and history of residency here at Cook County Health. For those of you who did not know, Cook County Health actually was the medical residency program in the US, created back in 1866. Since 1866, we are proud to say that we are currently hosting over 440 residents and fellows annually. And it's also worth noting that CCH offers the largest single site internal medicine residency in the USA, training over or at 131 residents, and you'll hear a bit more about their match day this year. Approximately 1 in 3 of CCH attendings actually train here through this program, and so you can appreciate how important it is that we start on the very front end in terms of ensuring that the folks that we bring into the organization are representative and reflect the communities that we serve. And with that in mind, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion partnered with GME to create a subcommittee, which is now formally known as the GME DEI subcommittee. We love a good acronym here. And the point of that subcommittee is to foster support and development, not only for the GME faculty, but also to provide supportive programming for underrepresented in medicine residents and fellows once they enter our doors. And so we are super excited about this subcommittee group. It's a group of very engaged and enthusiastic doctors from across the spectrum here in the organization, and there've been loads of ideas. Debbie, if we could go to the next slide, I'd like to walk you through at a very high level some of our many efforts as it relates to the subcommittee work and efforts that we believe had a positive impact this year and have the potential to have an even more long-term impact on the efforts of the GME team. First of all, we have a year-round effort to recruit and to plan about how not only do we bring folks in, but how we support them once they're here, so that by word of mouth, we are a destination program for a variety of reasons, including our appreciation and support of the underrepresented in medicine residents. In addition, you may recall that a few months back, we reported out about our inaugural event, which we hosted in January of 2023, where we invited URIM candidates here to the campus on a Saturday to give them tours and access to our diverse leadership and faculty here at the organization. We had a huge success, we believe, with that, so much so we're planning to do 2 as it relates to, in addition to doing something in January of 2024, in the fall, we will be hosting an event that has a more strategic footprint on local, and by local, I mean regional to the Midwest, to make people aware of our programming. We also provided implicit bias training for the GME faculty and team members who are engaged with interviewing candidates to really have a robust conversation and dialogue about how critical it is to look through a lens that ensures that we are all being mindful of the goals of the organization, and for people to take that training and apply it to their efforts as it relates to, on a departmental level addressing their goals. We are also looking to roll out in the new year a mentorship program where we will allow residents who are coming in, URIMs who are coming in, to have direct mentorship, not from a clinical perspective, but really from a career and experience perspective. And so we're super excited about and fine-tuning the details of that. I won't go through this line by line, but we are also going to be expanding the training to our GME leadership as it relates to being informed and continuing the dialogue and conversation about being purposeful, if you will, in our recruiting and interviewing efforts. Another really critical piece is that we're going to expand our partnerships, or to create partnerships with medical school chapters and groups with a specific emphasis on local or regional medical programs as well as HBCU institutions. I spoke a bit about the additional sort of medical education days, if you will, that we plan on hosting. And in addition to that, we're going to do some additional things related to social and or group support for those students and residents in our program leadership. So again, this is a really high level, and Debbie, we can go to the next slide of some of the efforts that we have in place. Again, I'm super excited about the energy and the commitment of the subcommittee to expand on that rich legacy that I started the beginning of this with. This list is just sort of an overview of both our residency programs and our fellowship programs. And so I would also be remiss not to acknowledge that a big portion of this has been a part of our partnership with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, where we participate in the first cohort with an emphasis on working with the ACGME to identify ways to ensure that hospitals are being purposeful, thoughtful, and intentional with improving their diversity and equity metrics related to GME. And so with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Fegan, to talk a bit more about, we chose to highlight a few of the departments today, and she's gonna walk you through this year's match. So thank you. Dr. Fegan.
Thank you very much. And so for those of the directors who are not aware of the process, the match, which happens every year, allows people from across the country, all the residencies, to interview candidates. The candidates go to various programs, and then the candidates rank which programs they're interested in, and then the programs rank which candidates they're interested in. And so then all data goes into a computer, and then decisions are made. Some programs may say, we don't want anyone who didn't rank us first or second, or we don't want anyone who didn't rank us in the top 5. And the candidates may also make some preferences in terms of where they want to match. At the end of the day, the results come out on the one day in March, usually the second or third Friday in March. This year, we made a strong commitment to select more underrepresented minorities in medicine. It was, a conscious effort that we've been working toward for a number of years. And we talk about the internal medicine program because it is our largest program with 131 residents. 51%, 21 of the 41 residents that matched were members of underrepresented groups. There were, of those folks who were selected, we had 11 who were Hispanic or Latino, and 10 who were African American, so about a 50-50 split. So it will, as a result, when those candidates come in July, they will represent 21. They will be 21 out of the 132 residents that we have in internal medicine, so represent 16%. So in a single matching period, we exceeded the national average. The national average is about 12% of trainees are underrepresented minorities. Our goal is to have our workforce to look more like the population we serve. Debbie, if you can go to the next slide. So we're quite pleased with the success. I'll also say that this is the first time in the last more than 20 years that the majority of candidates who were selected for the internal medicine class coming in this July, the majority of them are from American medical schools. And the next slide as well represents that incoming class.
Getting a blank screen and I don't know why.
Okay, well, we'll just keep going. It's a large class. They put it on 2 different slides. I don't know why it didn't come out.
I don't know if you can keep talking while I try and solve the problem here. Hold on.
Okay, give me 1 second. I had it up. So the next department we were going to talk about was family medicine. Family medicine has been focused on the underrepresented minorities for several years now. They are a program of 12 residents per year, and underrepresented minorities were represented eight underrepresented minorities in 2019, 8 in 2020, 10 in 2021. 8 in 2022, and this year they had 9 underrepresented minorities of the 12 that they selected. There were 3 Black women, 1 Latino man, and 2 Latino women. Okay, should I keep going, Debbie?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about
All right.
going to the next page.
Yeah, okay. So we just had a picture of them. And then I'll talk just for a second about our emergency medicine program, which has always been a stellar program. I will tell you that we accept 17 residents per year into our internal medicine program. For that program, we have 1,300 applications, but they also have had an underrepresented minority initiative. They clearly can accept the top of every class every year. But this year, they, like our other programs, focused on underrepresented minorities, and they took residents from 13 different medical schools, 8 different states, and 9 were from the Chicagoland area, and including more than 20% of them that also were underrepresented minorities. So we're quite pleased with the results of the match this year. We think that the bias training was helpful for the program directors in making good decisions. And you can go to the next slide.
Dr. Fegan, one question. What is
Surely.
rotating resident? What's a rotating? 9 of 17 were rotating residents.
Right. So they're talking about folks who had done rotations here during their training prior to selecting the position. I'll be happy to entertain any questions. That's it, Debbie.
Any questions for Shannon and Dr. Fegan? But do want to congratulate Dr. Fegan, you, and I know that there was a lot of team members that worked with you and Shannon behind that to make it a huge success. So congratulations for everything that you have done and for helping to make sure that we have a true representation locally and from our community and our upcoming medical students. And hopefully they're all going to stay with us here at Cook County Health and become part of our permanent faculty.
Well, we know that a large percentage of them do. I thank you for that. And I had pushed on medicine for several years, and we had not had much success. And we had a very strong commitment this year to interview more candidates, and that was immensely helpful. So virtually everyone who was qualified was interviewed, and obviously that yielded results.
Yep.
The questions, Commissioner Deere.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't have a question, but it's more so a comment. I just want to applaud the leadership here at Cook County Health for doing a stellar job and making it a priority to bring on more individuals who are representative of underserved communities. That is a must. I am so glad to hear this. Thank you so much, Shannon, for giving us that history of Cook County Health. I am well informed about Cook County Health, but I did not know that it was the first residency program in the United States. So rest assured that will be included in all of my speeches because that is important information to know. Dr. Fegan, thank you so much. You are a legend around here at Cook County Health. Thank you for your championing the issue of having individuals from underserved communities be represented, you being one yourself. I think it is so important, not only for Cook County Health, but for our youth. We talked about the scholarship program a little bit earlier. Those people can't be what they can't see. And when they see people who they come into the doctor and are representing their culture, they say, oh, I can be an internal medicine doctor. I could be an emergency room doctor. So I applaud all of you in Israel. Thank you for your leadership. I am so grateful.
Commissioner Deere, we like to say in the Department of Medicine, there are only two types of doctors in the world, those who trained at Cook County and those who wish they did.
I love it.
Love it.
Director Harrington, did you have a question? I see Director Robinson's hand raised as well.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just wanted to extend my congratulations to you and the leadership of Cook County for really taking this on. Some people probably don't realize it takes a certain level of intentionality to get these things done. Now, typically, you just assume that people are going to do good work, but it's always great to hear of the efforts that have gone in to actually make some of this a reality moving forward. So I really want to commend you, the entire team, for this work.
Thank you. I think there was still Director Robinson.
Yes, I would like to echo the accolades because they are well deserved to the entire team for doing this. And I have a couple thoughts here because I think this is fantastic. And now my question is, can you utilize this same schematic to look at mid-career people? Because if that's where we're lacking and we're having a problem filling those positions, can you create a program that would make people want to really come in and do some type of rotation to fill that void? Because there's no argument about your residency program is probably considered to be, if not the best, one of the best in the world. There's no argument about that. And for those on here that do not know, they actually have people come from all over the world because this is the best place to train. There's no argument about it. And so now, building off of that, and the fact that you are now taking diversity into consideration, because before it's about what grades did you make and those type of things. But well, we know if you really want to get good health care, the grades do not indicate if an individual has implicit bias. So now that you're taking that into the formula to be able to say who you're bringing into the early program, can we create something that would bring people into a mid-career that would let them say, hey, I want to get some of this deeper training that they're offering here at Cook County, and make this become you have the U.S. Navy coming here. Everyone loves this place, but we want some people to come and stay. And because you can see so much, a person who's thinking and really want to continue to progress in their career, it's a hard argument to say, hey, I want to have that on my resume. I want to put in 2 or 3 years at this great institution. And so be able to have that program set up so you can bring those mid-career folks in while everyone is not so tied down. And then all of a sudden they may find another home and we can fill those voids that we're looking to do. And that's on the nursing as well as with the entire clinical spectrum, and see if we can do that. That's just a thought, because I'm aware of some of the history and the things, and I think this is a great place. That's why I'm so thrilled to be here, to be a part of it, and see if we can help it expand and really do great work and provide great care.
I
Again,
would say absolutely.
congratulations.
I like the way that you are thinking, and we have some of those programs underway now. We can also bring an update on what we're doing there, but definitely like the suggestion, and we'll take it back and see how we can even operationalize it further. But we definitely want to be looking at every level across our entire spectrum. And I will say that Dr. Fegan, also Shannon, and all of our HR department and all of our leaders look that as we're replacing our leaders, that we're also looking into the future and how we can make sure that we are bringing our local talent into those leadership opportunities. And so we definitely we'll make sure that we are looking at all aspects and how we can operationalize that across our organization. So thank you. And like what you're thinking, and we are definitely going to bring that in. We'll bring back some presentations on that as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think that brings me to the end of my presentation, because how could you follow anything else after Shannon and Dr. Fegan have presented such good news? But with that, we're open to any questions from the report, and then my larger support report is available for the record. So Chairman Taylor, thank you. If there's no other questions, that concludes my report, but I'll stay on for a second if there is some questions.
Director Arrington, your hand is still raised. Is that from earlier? You have an additional question or comment?
No additional questions. I'll lower my hand.
All right, thanks. All right, again, I echo everything everyone said. I'm reflecting back to discussions last year that we had with the board and some of the staff, and quite frankly, was listened to progress has been made. So thank you all very much. We really appreciate it. I know we've had a little bit of a long meeting. We still have a little bit more work to do, colleagues. The board will now be going into closed session. Action is expected to be taken in the open section on items 9D and E after the discussion in the closed session. So directors, I will need you to rejoin me. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into closed meeting pursuant to the following exceptions to the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120-2 C 1, 2, 11, 12, and 17. Do I have a motion?
So move, Director Harrington.
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. Madam Secretary, please take a roll call vote on the motion.
Roll call vote on the motion to go into closed session. Aye or nay. Director Bott is absent. Director Curry?
Aye.
Vice Chair Deere?
Deere is aye.
Director Garza is absent. Director Harrington?
Aye.
Director Kim is absent. Director Ryder?
Aye.
Director Robinson?
Aye.
Director Sorrell?
Aye.
Director Story?
Aye.
Director Webster Cross?
Aye.
And Chair Taylor?
Aye.
You have 9 yeas and 3 absent.
Thank you. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Directors, will you please log off now and join me in the closed session?